All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of Successful Fire Operations. So technology is rapidly changing the way that fire operations personnel respond to incidents. And first-in officers and incident commanders are now able to access data immediately that can inform their tactical decision-making and really improve outcomes on the fire ground. So today's webinar's guest speakers are going to discuss 3 different technology-driven trends that are impacting fire operations today. And our guests today are Battalion Chief Brock Harrion from Addison Fire Protection District here in Illinois, as well as Captain Anthony Espinosa and Captain Mike Eastman from Tallahassee, Florida. And we also have Lieutenant Michael Miller from Melville Fire Protection District in Missouri. As people are kind of continuing to roll in a little bit here, we're welcoming our guests and preparing to talk about these 3 important trends in the fire industry today, as well as the future of fire operations, especially as it relates to technology. Technology is really changing the way that we're doing things, and we want to learn from one another so that nobody has to reinvent the wheel, and we can all move forward together to provide the best possible service to our communities. All right, so the first trend we're going to talk about is utilizing building and location data for tactical decision making. And I want to kind of have our friends from Tallahassee take the lead on this. They're doing a big push at their department right now to go out into their community, collect building and location data, and then be able to use that in the operations side of things. So kind of in recent years, we've seen a trend in the fire industry in the form of a shift from paper pre-incident plans to digital pre-incident plans. And I want to know why you think this might be important for fire operations. Aren't pre-plans traditionally more of like a fire prevention type of thing or an ISO thing? Like, why are you guys making this a priority for operations?
Gotcha. So the trend of digital pre-incident plans, it's greatly increased the capability of fire operations personnel. With the new technologies like our mobile data computers and app software that can send direct data directly to our mobile devices, fire pre-plans are no longer a fire prevention task. Where paper forms are filled out and filed away and probably never seen again. I'm sure everyone can agree with that. Now command as well as our operational personnel, they can quickly access the pertinent data and information on the fly by utilizing their personal devices, not only the mobile data computers in the fire units, but again, their personal devices. It's just as simple as typing in a name, an address, to get the information at an instant. So when we talk about fire prevention doing, pre-planned stuff like that, and that's no longer really a fire prevention activity. Probably never should have been. As the best people to benefit from fire prevention plans are the crews that work in the response area. Knowledge of your response work area, familiarization of larger, more hazardous, buildings are paramount to the fire crews that go to these areas every shift. And crews that go in and do their own pre-fire plans, they have a better understanding of the building layout. Where the fire department connections are, standpipes, things that they really need to know, these points of interest. Not to mention the training of the crews get from doing pre-plans. You've got a lot of your junior firefighters or just less senior people that by going out there in the community as a fire company and a crew, you're gaining more knowledge of your response area, but you're also teaching the next generation of firefighters, and they have a better understanding of what we go to and what we do. They're not just being told to do something, they themselves are learning why we do what we do.
Sure.
And you had also mentioned about the ISO, and that does work out great too, though, for our ISO when we get out there and show them, of course, like I said, that we're in the community, we're trying to make a difference and making sure that we have the knowledge to do our job and our commitment to the community. So.
Absolutely. So on the operations side of things, what types of challenges were you facing with your tactical decision making before you had the digital pre-incident plans? What did that look like for you?
So before our digital plans, we had to rely on, and again, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, is our handwritten forms, drawings that were normally kept in a binder on the fire unit, maybe with a battalion chief. The early pre-plans were usually limited maybe to high hazard areas because we couldn't keep all our commercial properties in one binder. We just had to find our high hazard areas, and that would be what they would have. So this greatly helped us being able to get a lot more commercial properties documented through digital pre-planning. Again, due to the limited nature of how our early pre-plans were used, tactical considerations of high hazard areas would have been laid out and prioritized, but for our first 2 units and stuff. But the ability to access vital information wasn't readily available to necessarily the first in crews because they didn't have that information with them, to maybe our operational officers because they're out there, doing operational tasks and they're not at the command post, so they don't have the ability to see maybe what's being shown on that pre-fire plan. As time's gone on, we have moved towards obviously technology, and again, I talked about it before, having our mobile data computers installed in our units with our dispatching, mapping software, and at some point, when we had all these, again, the things in the binders, we started realizing that with these new computers, we could start doing more written pre-fire plans, and then we got smart and said, well, we're going to scan them and put them in PDF forms. And they got put on through our CAD system or in the MDCs. And again, it was another thing that was really lost. It was hard to find them, hard to move from screen to screen for these officers, and it just got overlooked. By doing what we're able to do now, we can have more pre-fire plans. I guess what I would say is, with the new advent of digital pre-plans, we're able to, again, bring in more information that's readily accessible to our crews who can look it up at a moment's notice. So that's what's actually improved for us. And that was some of the struggles we dealt with over the years, though, was limited information, limited ability to access it.
Sure. So are you able to show us kind of the tools that you're using that you really like right now? Like what is working well for you in that way?
Sure, yeah.
We're gonna try to share our screen here, so bear with us.
Yeah, but we've totally moved away from the paper forms of the pre-plans. So utilizing FlowMSP is really our main thing now. And
so what are we looking at here?
So we've got an example here of the Tallahassee Center is a condo apartment complex that we're looking at now that we did a pre-plan. It's got a parking deck below. Just the layout of the building itself sometimes it was difficult to find. We found that when we did our pre-plan that finding stairwell access to the parking deck was difficult. And by going over there and doing our pre-plan, you'll see that we created, we utilized the symbols that we found in FlowMSP to document where our connections were, where gas shutoff was at. We've been able to use text bubbles to paint a better picture for our crews who are going in there. That's what I've been asking our crews who have been utilizing FlowMSP is to, for their first initial picture, try to get us an aerial view of the property to go to. And from there, they can paint a picture of hazard areas, things that we're looking for to make a quick response to it without us having to try to find things maybe in the dark or 3 in the morning or hidden in the bushes. So you see from our picture, and we can go through the other ones as well.
So what's the difference between this and maybe the PDF pre-plans that you used to use?
Well, obviously they were diagrams. There was written stuff, but again, it wasn't clearly written. They're just handwriting this stuff out there in the field. We had diagrams and pictures that people would draw, and we had some horrible artists. So it just sometimes, depending on the crew that got out there, we just didn't have a lot of really clear, concise information.
And how are you getting these during response though? Because don't you usually only have maybe 2 minutes before the tones and when you arrive on scene? Like, how do you get this stuff out?
Yeah, and that was our issue, was trying to get through the computer to find and bring up these forms, and then start trying to read on the computer as you're bouncing around and looking at it. You know, the nice thing with the app base is once we get a tone for that particular location, a fire call, a medical call, whatever, we can bring it up on FlowMSP, click on it, and you will see that's been pre-planned. And we can, of course, hit show pre-plan. And from there, we can see any of the data that's been entered, the pictures. Again, pictures speak 1,000 words, right? So seeing the pictures help to give us a visual layout and idea of what we're going to. So that speaks volumes by being able to utilize that.
Absolutely. So what kind of outcomes have you seen at your department so far on the response side with this information?
The way we've overcome the challenges is that was the question you asked?
Yeah, I was just wondering what kind of outcomes have you been seeing at your department since you've started using this?
Well, what I'd say about the outcomes for the department since moving to the digital format is that the suppression personnel I've talked to have really liked how easy and quick it is to access vital information in a timely manner. And I believe as we build our database up with more and more pre-plans, it's only going to help to better our crews that respond to locations that have been planned, and helping to give them vital information prior to our arrival. Now, with that said, there's always going to be those people that are resistant to change and technology, but I believe we are getting a lot of a younger department. I think that's nationwide, but we're also getting a lot of older command personnel who are realizing that this is the way of the future, and these are the things that we're trying to bring on board to better ourselves now and to better ourselves in the future. But I know that the things that I like and the things I've heard currently with this is utilizing the mapping software. You see we have the hydrant displayed out. Response information that we've obviously written into the drop-down screens that we can access to the right, as well as we can see our unit assignments, and all that helps. That's all a big help. And overall, I think our crews here in Tallahassee are happy with the way they can access the digital pre-plans and to locate, again, these things quickly and easily, and not have to do a lot of walking around to locate things they're trying to find. Again, going back to gas shutoffs, where's the hydrant, where's stairwell access, things like that. Great outcomes.
Awesome. So is there anything else you still wish that technology could do for you in this area with the pre-plans, the building and location information? Like, do you have any ideas of things that don't exist yet that you wish somebody would build?
I would say, for quick and efficient tactical decision making, I would think if we could have more integrated technology into one app. I know there's proprietary things, and there's other companies that are putting their stuff out, but things where we could show us all the information that's pertinent to us at the moment, like pre-plans, tactical consideration checkoff sheets, dispatch notes, premise hazards, all those things that we can have at our instant command, as opposed to having to go to different areas to find that information. Once I step off the truck, I might have my phone to be able to utilize Flow, but I may have to go back, get on the MDC to check dispatch notes and stuff like that.
Right. So just continued getting better and better at integrating and sharing between programs.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing about our first trend here. So now we're going to move on to trend number 2. This is identifying high hazard locations by using artificial intelligence. And this is something that Melville Fire Protection District is currently starting to use. And so I'd like Lieutenant Miller from Melville to tell us kind of what they're doing right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So a couple months ago, Jason approached us with this new software capabilities that basically flies over satellite imagery, and it measures and deems a property as a high hazard based upon 2 conditions. It looks at the roof condition, so it's looking for water staining, structural issues, damage to the roof from tree limbs, stuff like that, to also lot debris that can impede firefighting tactics and measures. From there, he provided that information to us, and it was actually at a really good time because we were coming up for our annual review of our pre-plans. And so we sat down, and based upon the satellite imagery where it showed damaged roof or poor conditioned roof and high lot debris, it flagged that as a high hazard. From there, we took our 7,000 pre-plans that we have and condensed it down to several hundred, and we were able to assign those out to each engine house and to each officer to say, hey, go out. These buildings have been flagged as a high hazard based upon these conditions. Go verify that, see if it is or if it isn't, and confirm if what the satellite's seeing is true.
Great. So kind of in practical terms, once you receive that information, you receive that analysis, you said, okay, these are the buildings that are most likely to contain high hazards to life safety for our personnel. So what kind of next steps are you taking? Because Melville is a relatively large district with a lot of occupancy. So how are you guys getting that work done?
So with the high hazards, the one thing that we've asked for is the ability to deem what's a high hazard or not based upon what we find. We're using the CAPE data and the satellite imagery as just that stepping stone. And from there, we give our fire crews the option to select whether a building is a high hazard based upon general conditions that we've kind of deemed. For example, hoarding conditions, and we do like that because we can flag residential houses as hoarding conditions and get them alerted as high hazards. Anywhere where we have a lot of obstacles that would impede stretching of fire hose or getting access into the building, and then specialty hazards, because we have a bunch of manufacturing in our area as well. So hazardous materials stored on site, different machinery, et cetera. So we've kind of been letting our crews determine that. They also can select high hazard based upon construction type. If there is any structural compromise, we've had several buildings, especially recently with flash flooding and heavy rains, that have some structural compromise. So they can flag that. And then with it being flagged, we can go back, and if repairs are made or an area is cleaned up, we can remove that high hazard later on, and we have a way to follow up with that.
Great. So let's kind of take a look inside of FlowMSP right now, because we do have some tools in here that allow you to input that hazard information so that it will pop up for your responders. So I'm gonna hop out of here really quickly and get you guys into FlowMSP so that you can see it. One moment. All right. And here we go. All right. Can everybody see okay? So this is a structure that has a false pitch roof over an original flat roof on this one. And so right on this first picture, we can see all of these things called out, but that's not necessarily going to be immediately visible to first responders. However, this is. So if they get toned out to this location, in their dispatch feed, they will be able to instantly access this pre-plan by just clicking on the incident. And when this pops up, they've got their high hazard flag right here with the notes that people have input. So if you have one of these buildings that has a dangerous roof condition and your crews going out, they do the pre-plan, they can indicate that in their location notes, and then that will be right here immediately available for them during response. So I believe, and I apologize for misquoting your title, Captain Miller. I believe that you are planning to have your people inputting these high hazard notes as they go out and visit these locations. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. And then we're going to continually update. So if we're there for an EMS call and we notice something that we should deem as a high hazard that could potentially harm us, we can quickly open up the app on our mobile devices and flag that address and type in the notes as to why we consider that as a high hazard.
So how does can you kind of connect the dots for me? How does the artificial intelligence information that the computer collected, how does that translate into the future of fire operations? Make it really easy for me here.
So I've actually been in talks with Jason, and we're going to have CAPE Analytics do a survey of our district once a quarter. I'm working on doing that more frequently. That way, after larger storms that roll through the area, we can look at properties that we already know have damage to the structure and use that as a measuring tool to see if there's worse damage. Also with that, we can look for trends. If a building suddenly has structural damage due to a storm that came through, and in 6 months, that damage is still there and hasn't been repaired, well, then we can go out there and figure out why. Is that property abandoned? Are the people not upkeeping it? Do they not care? That way it can lead us to a trend of a possible hazard to us before it becomes a hazard.
Sure. So kind of as this technology is developing and evolving, we're going to see more and more applications for it in those type of situations, not just on, one and done type of an analysis, but an ongoing basis where we're continually identifying and addressing those issues. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Correct. Yes, an example of that, we actually just had a partial roof collapse of a large vacant retail store. The storm came through and the gutters were clogged on there. It amassed a massive amount of water. Several weeks later, crews were there after, again, another storm. They tried to force entry because they could see water pouring in from the outside. And when they did, water came gushing out at them about chest high. The roof had collapsed, completely flooded the inside, taken down a sprinkler line with it, had several feet of water inside. Had we known that prior to and alerted that crew, they would have known at 2 a.m, hey, something's wrong with this building already. Maybe we should wait instead of trying to force entry into here and trying to figure out why.
Sure. So are you saying when you do identify things like that, your department is making it a procedure to put that into the pre-incident plan, like to update the plan so that no matter who responds there, they're going to have that information? Or how are you kind of handling that information once you acquire it? How are you turning that into operations?
Yes, it's once that information is decided upon and gathered, it is put immediately into the pre-plan through a mobile device and cleaned up on a desktop if needed. We're also working on a way to notify our personnel specifically assigned to that engine house if a new high hazard pre-plan was created or updated. And that way they will receive an email or text message that says, hey, this new high hazard has been created in your response area. Review it at your nearest convenience.
So when you update a pre-plan, how does everybody get the new pre-plan that you just, like the new information you just put in?
They don't know at the moment that it's been updated. They would just know if they go to that address and they look at the alert on their phone or on the desktop with the high hazard symbol that's next to it. And hopefully that symbol triggers them to look more into it as to why is this symbol there and why is this a high hazard to me?
So do you need to send anybody new files or email anybody information or go into your things and replace different things for people? Or how does that update go out to everybody?
Just through dispatching. I don't have to email anybody at the moment. Hopefully computer technology will catch up, and whenever it does get labeled as a high hazard, it will send that out automatically.
Great. So have you seen any outcomes at your department so far based on this technology and the work you've been doing on the high hazard pre-plans?
For commercial properties, no, it's still relatively new to us. The potential has been there. It's just being so new, we haven't used it like in the example that I just gave you. We have actually seen it with residential properties where our EMS units will be responding to a property and they'll say, hey, what's this symbol here? And they'll ask me as they're going out the door, like, oh, that's been flagged because they're hoarders. So call us if you need help getting them out of the house.
Sounds good. So what do you kind of wish that technology would do for you in this area? What do you think is the next most important thing that anybody could build for you for operations?
I think, like I just stated, being able to notify crews when a new high hazard property has been assigned or been delegated out as high hazard. That way they're familiar. We have a lot of newer people that get moved around based upon staffing needs. And so if they can at least be notified and recognize those higher hazards to us prior to going there on an incident, I feel like it'll make for much safer operations.
So how do you imagine people might like to get those notifications? Would it be like a text or an email, or how would it come to them?
Emails get washed out too much. I would simply say it would probably be a notification through the FlowMSP app. I would say most of our personnel at the moment are utilizing FlowMSP for call notifications. Typically, we get the notification through the app before we actually get our in-house alerting. So they're utilizing that just to get basic information. So maybe a way of alerting through the app itself with a different tone or a different vibration pattern so they know it's not a call that they're receiving.
Interesting. Okay. Those are all great suggestions. So let's go ahead and hop to our third trend, which is mutual aid and auto aid data sharing. So this is something we're seeing more and more frequently, especially in urban areas. And we're going to have our friend Battalion Chief Harrion from Addison speak about this one here.
Well, I thought we were all friends till Tallahassee called me old. I feel like I'm one of those old guys here, but I'm going to steal the screen from you here.
Yep.
Has everybody got it? Everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay. So I got a couple screens through, so I'll wait for your questions and scroll through the different things. The first one I have pulled up is our neighbors to the north, Wooddale, has allowed us to share, and we share their information and they share ours. So just randomly, I picked an address. So if I'm in the car and I'm driving up, I clicked on the address. If it opens up here, please. Oh, it's on the bottom, sorry. I highlighted the building. Clearly it doesn't have the icon because we're not run there. And then on the bottom, I can pull up their pre-incident survey, their building markings, how they divvied up the building, and then clearly how they have set theirs up is they've pre-designated their A, B, and C divisions. So it makes it kind of easier, especially if I get an assignment as I'm pulling up to BC division, I know exactly where I'm supposed to go. And then, a couple more silhouette pictures of the building itself. So it's something that we've shared with them and they've shared with us. And I would say for the most part, for me, it's a little bit harder because I can't read the screen and drive at the same time, or I end up fuddling, I'll try to use a good word here, fuddling through the buttons, and I end up pulling up the mapping instructions and I'm looking at the building. But anyway, good. I know my Tallahassee friends think I'm old. That's probably why I do it. But I would say from the crew guys, because we have, I want to say ingrained in their head, I would say the fire crews and the EMS crews that are going to ergo this building that's on fire, they're pulling up the data. They know where the hydrants are. So whatever they get assigned, whether it's a water supply, whether it's ventilation, whether it's a division, they're pulling the building specs up, before they even get to the scene. So we've really worked well with Wooddale. I'll tell a story a little bit later. We've gotten some other people's information that they may or may not know we got, and relay an incident we had later on. But it's worked really well with our neighbors.
That's great. So when you're responding to a neighboring district, you're outside of your buildings that you regularly visit. What kind of pieces of information are really the most helpful to you when you're responding? What are you looking at specifically?
So me for the car, but I'll give you both phases. For me, for the car is the routing, just the quick glance at a couple streets near the building location, especially, there's a handful of times where I'll go to a neighboring agency and be the first chief officer there. So being able to give or pronounce a street name correctly if I need to set up staging or put a vehicle in a certain portion. So that's very helpful. And then obviously the hydrant location and water supply, and being able to designate that second or third company to where that hydrant is, especially if that first engine needs water supply. So those are probably the two most important things that I use it for. But I would say to the group, having it available, one of the things I've done in the car as crews have come up to me, I'll have the picture up and be like, hey, I want you to go here. I want you to make entry here. And they can physically see it on the screen. And they're like, oh, okay. So they get that quick look. So once they get there, they know what they're looking for too.
Sure. And how are you accessing these during response? Like, how do you quickly get to this pre-plan for the specific incident?
Again, I'll just relay, if I hit the right button, I'm trying to do it as I drive, but that's not usually the case. But I would just say our troops have just been uber aggressive with getting into the flow program while they are en route, and looking at the pictures, looking at the pre-plan, looking at the hydrants, looking at maybe even as they approach, is there a better position for them to be in related to hydrants or possible hazards they may have. And it's just a matter of practice. I think there's probably nobody on the conference call that wouldn't say we don't get better with practice. And I think just force feeding that to them, it's really played out on a lot of different levels. And I just add, I pulled up the story I want to tell you. So we had a fire in the building that's highlighted here on the picture. Our first two rigs took the position on the south side there. And it was great. They walked in and, for a fire alarm, and who knew it was actually a fire, right? So the crews went to work. I tried to assign the third vehicle, which was an engine, to, on this picture here, get the hydrant on the west side of that drive and come from the north, thinking, again, they're all looking at flow just as much as I am. I had two separate crews drive down, again, what would be the east side of the street, and completely miss the assignment because they weren't doing it. So, or they didn't know they had the drive there, when clearly, again, I'm using Wooddale in this example. We share Wooddale stuff. They have the same access to this screen as we do. And there's our neighbors to the north, and, not using the flow as they should have. And we ended up having to go to a different route. But again, the technology is only as good as the people are using it, right?
Wait, so you're saying you can't just have a pre-plan, you have to actually look at it for it to do you any good?
Yes, it's by osmosis. You just tell them what to do.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, that's definitely a great example. I know, especially when you're coming up on something in the dark, or if it's like buried in snow, being able to know where those hydrants are can be super helpful. So, and
one more, we went to a neighbor to our south, and our guys pulled up on flow. They knew exactly where the hydrants were. Their first rig got there, thought they had a hydrant at the end of the street, so they didn't need the assistance, which is fine. So our guys called, they said, no, we got it. And our rigs pulled in, they all pulled in, and I see guys hand jack and hose past me in the car going, where are you going? And it was the hydrant that our crew passed that could have hit and forwarded into the fire. So it's just, using the technology to your advantage, certainly.
sure. So you've talked quite a bit about what's already working for you with the mutual aid data sharing. Where do you think technology could continue to travel in this direction? What do you wish somebody that would build to make mutual aid data sharing even easier and more effective?
Well, I would just say, I would say anything to make it better. And the last thing I put up, and the picture, and I'll get back to my picture here in a second. I just think anything, now you see I'm wearing these now because again, I'm old. We went on a fire alarm this morning. So I pulled this up, and some of the inputs that we put in are great from our guys, but I think what I don't like is when you scroll through the bottom of the pictures, you scroll through the data that's in there, the ability to enlarge or shrink that, because I hit my fat finger and it just keeps scrolling through the next pictures. So some sort of ability to enlarge some of those pictures so I can see, most importantly. But just, I think the more pictures that you can put in a pre-plan, I just think it's better for everybody. I just think it gives people more data, more visuals to have of what they can encounter. And to sideways this conversation, this is one of our local junior highs that we went to this morning for a fire alarm. I think we're all unfortunately in the industry now where we're doing more with less and all that stuff. But I think with the active shooter and all of our preparation for some of this stuff, I think having on the buildings themselves, one of the things that certainly we're doing in our community is noting doors and windows and putting numbers and all that stuff on that stuff. I think adding that to either the main picture or a picture to where, when the community is saying you're at door 2, but I got to do 100, a 360 around the building to find door 2 versus pulling up a slide that says, oh yeah, door 2's on the west. I think just adding that caveat and that ability into the program, I think would be great, because then, everybody understands the direction and where everybody's meeting or where we need to meet the PD or the public works or the school. But I think those two things, I think, are probably my things that I'd like to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to go ahead and take back over here and finish this up. So we've talked about kind of these 3 main trends today. These are technologies that already exist and are continuing to evolve to change the way fire operations is effective, how quickly we can respond with the right information to make the right tactical assignments and to get the best possible outcomes in these situations. So thank you very much to our guests today for sharing your experience and allowing the rest of these departments to learn from what you're currently doing. And I would now like to open it up if any of our attendees have questions for our guest speakers today, then we will go ahead and do that at this time. And you are allowed to unmute yourself if you wish to ask a question.
Hey, I got a question here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chief.
Hi,
Okay, sorry, yeah.
you may have already answered this. I know when Melville was talking, and there are neighbors here to the north. So with the satellite imagery, you said something about your having them update that every quarter for you. Is that something, one of the guys here was asking about that, like the satellite imagery that's being used for identifying the high hazards from the roof and the lots and so forth. How often is that imagery updated?
Sure. So that's something that I will say that's not something that happens for everybody because it's such a new technology and we're just kind of at the very beginning of being able to roll that out. So I would say that it's kind of more on a case-by-case basis at this time. Just kind of like when we were developing the dashboard tool, Captain Menke, we did very specific exercises with Rock Community in the development of that technology. So I would say that's probably what's happening with Melville right now with the artificial intelligence. And then as we get more of a handle on how that's going to work efficiently, then we would be able to build it into the product so that that's available for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Lee, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you for taking my question. And sorry to make the awkward interruption from before. I noticed the last presenter had address numbers on his map on the satellite view. Is that a feature that's available to everybody?
Yeah, so that is our lot number tool. So when you're creating a pre-plan, you have the ability to enter any text that you want into the lot number field, and then that will display as a flag on your map view over that structure.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. We're just in the process of standing this up, so learning the ropes. Thanks a lot.
For sure.
Hey, Joy.
Yeah.
And to that point, it's tied to Google Maps.
Mhm.
So, I mean, for the most part, 95% of the time it pins correctly, but we have had to pin, in other neighborhoods or other locations as well, but it just uses Google Maps.
Yes. Other questions? Well, I think you guys did such a great job that nobody can even think of a question to ask you. So we'll go ahead and wrap up here. I am going to just encourage everybody to please follow FlowMSP on social media. If there are any platforms that you use, this is a great way to stay up to date on the different technologies that Flow is coming out with, as well as email. So if you see emails blowing up your email box, it's probably me telling you about all the great stuff that we're doing. And then also you can reach out to us if you're not already a FlowMSP customer and you want to know more about what that could look like for your department. You can email us at sales@flowmsp.com. And we would love to talk to you more about that. And we do have another question here from Carol Sheldon. So what are some of the ways you have found helpful to encourage team members to build the habit of using the app consistently? So if any of our guests would like to answer that, or all of you, however you want to handle that.
I'll start off. I think we did a couple things here. One is a deputy chief ordered us all to use it, so that makes it pretty easy. No, I'm just kidding. No, number one, I think the key is the ease of the program, right? I think you can throw any product out there. If it's not going to work, nobody's going to use it. So I think the ease of the program, number one. Number two, the buy-in from the troops. We have a handful of guys that really bought into the development of our pre-plan program. So they have skin in the game. So they're taking pictures and uploading the pictures, and they're getting information from us as officers and firefighters of what they want to see. So they're uploading that. So, and I would say the third thing is, I think it's the last thing then becomes comfort, right? If you are using it and you're using it all the time for ambulance calls and fire calls, you just get comfortable using it, and then it's easier to use, and then you end up using it more often. So I think those are the three real bullet points that we've, I guess, just organically fell into here, and I would just say it's been real successful for us.
It's great. Any of our other guests want to tackle that one? What's working at your department to get people engaged with the product?
I think also, sorry, I think also is, again, the ease of it, being able to take out your cell phone and everybody has one on them, and, just being able to take quick pictures that are instantly available to the app. And I know our members have bought in with the dispatch notification side of it. That's a huge benefit to us, and crews really getting benefit from that. I think that has shown them what they put into it, they're going to get back out from doing those pre-plans.
Captain Menke, did you have something you wanted to kick in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo a little bit what Brock had said there about, I think it goes back to, as firefighters, we operate really well off of muscle memory. We have a certain way that we do things all the time. When the tones go off, we know, everybody has their gear set up their own certain way they like to do it. They put it on a certain way they like to do it. get in the truck and they're mapping to the call, and you got these certain things that you're doing, talking on the radio and so forth. And I think it's just building that the pre-plan viewing aspect into the muscle memory. So just encouraging the guys to, like you were saying, on the medical calls, on the automatic alarms, on everything, make that a part of what you're doing, especially in the captain seat, pulling up that pre-plan and looking at it. Even if you don't think you're going to use anything on it, pull it up, just get used to pulling that out, making that part of your muscle memory. And then I like what the previous gentleman said about the, on the phones and stuff. Even the guys in the back seat have the ability to pull their phone out on the way to a call and open that pre-plan up and be kind of looking at it on the way there too. With everything else they're doing, understand it. But yeah, I think it's just building that into a part of what we do.
Great. Well, we are at the end of our time. I really want to thank everyone for joining the webinar today. And I look forward to seeing technology continue to evolve and improve the way the fire service does operations. Everyone have a great day.